If you love intense HFY stories where humanity turns fear into strength, hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next battle. Your support helps this channel bring you more powerful sci-fi stories full of emotion, strategy, and unforgettable human moments. The first thing Cadet Elias Ward learned about Vareth War Academy was that its halls were designed to make weakness feel ashamed of itself. The walls were black stone and polished steel, carved with the names of alien commanders who had burned fleets, broken sieges, and survived wars that were now taught like sacred history. Every doorway stood too tall for humans. Every training field was built for bodies stronger, faster, heavier, or sharper than his. Cadets from 12 species moved through the central combat hall in armor plates, scaled harnesses, pressure robes, and neural command rigs, while Elias stood near the back in a plain dark earth uniform with one duffel bag, one academy badge, and the quiet face of someone who had already noticed every exit before anyone spoke to him. No one had welcomed him badly. That would have been easier. They welcomed him with smiles that did not reach their eyes, with polite pauses, with the soft insult of lowered expectations. To them, humanity was new, loud in its reputation, small in its biology, and dangerous only in the old stories soldiers told when they wanted young officers to respect desperation. Master Taran Voss entered the hall exactly when the class clock struck 0. He was tall even among the Varathi, with bone-gray skin, a narrow face, and 4 cold eyes that seemed to measure every cadet and find most of them acceptable. His uniform carried no decoration except a single black command band across his chest, the mark of an instructor who had survived active fleet command and been considered too valuable to let die in another war. The room went silent before he raised a hand. Elias noticed that at once. Fear did not always announce itself by shaking. Sometimes it became discipline. Voss walked the front line slowly, letting his gaze pass over armored cadets, winged cadets, insectoid cadets with hooked limbs folded neatly beneath them, and finally the human standing alone near the 3rd tactical ring. His expression did not change, but the pause was long enough for the whole class to feel it. So, Voss said, his translator giving his voice a clean, sharp edge. Earth has sent us a specimen. A few cadets shifted. Someone near the left training rail gave a quiet click that might have been amusement. Elias did not answer. Voss turned fully toward him. Cadet Elias Ward, Colonial Defense Exchange, Sol Military Liaison Program. Your record states survival training, civilian evacuation support, and emergency command simulation experience. It also states no confirmed fleet kill, no academy duel record, no biological armor, no natural weapon system, and no neural combat enhancement. He let the list hang in the air like a verdict. Tell me, Cadet Ward, did your people send you here to learn or to test our patience? Elias met the instructor's eyes. To learn, sir. The answer was calm enough to irritate the room. Voss stepped closer. Good. Then we will begin with education. He lifted 2 fingers and the center of the combat hall opened beneath a field of red light. Walls rose from the floor, forming a long corridor of shifting barriers, broken cover, smoke vents, and civilian marker drones glowing pale blue at random points along the path. Above them, black training drones unfolded from ceiling racks with their weapons cold but ready. Several cadets straightened. Even those who had been laughing stopped. Elias felt the change in the air before he understood the machine. The exercise had a reputation. Voss wanted the class to recognize it before he explained. The red corridor, he said, a basic test of movement, threat control, and command judgment under pressure. The objective is simple. Cross the corridor, secure the exit point, and preserve as many civilian markers as possible before hostile drones complete their sweep. A cadet with bronze scales muttered, "No first year completes it." Voss heard him and smiled without warmth. Correct, but Cadet Ward is not here because he is ordinary, according to human diplomatic requests. He is here because humanity insists it belongs among serious military minds. Elias walked to the entry line when Voss gestured. The floor under his boots changed texture, reading his weight, balance, pulse, and temperature. A safety rig dropped over his shoulders and locked around his chest. It was too large and adjusted down with an awkward hiss. That earned another ripple of quiet amusement. Voss stood beside the control dais. "You may withdraw, cadet. No shame will be recorded. The Academy does not require every species to perform beyond its design." Elias looked through the red-lit corridor. He saw moving cover, 3 drone nests, 5 civilian markers, 2 dead ends, and 1 narrow maintenance gap near the left wall that was probably not meant to matter. "Are civilian losses counted equally with personal completion?" he asked. This time the laughter was clear. Voss tilted his head. "Listen carefully, class. The human is already worried about the imaginary civilians." Elias did not look back at them. "That was the mission, sir." Voss's eyes narrowed slightly. "Begin." The corridor came alive like a trap that had been waiting for permission. Drones dropped from the ceiling in 3 angles at once, firing hard light rounds that struck Elias' shield and drove him sideways before he had taken 5 steps. A civilian marker rolled into the open, flashing blue in panic pattern. Elias moved toward it and the floor beneath him shifted, forcing him into the line of 2 drone bursts. The impact slammed into his ribs through the training shield, not lethal, but real enough to steal breath. He caught the marker, shoved it behind cover and took another hit across the shoulder. The class watched the human stumble, recover and stumble again. He was too slow for the drone timing, too light to break the moving barriers, too vulnerable to ignore pain the way larger species could. Voss folded his hands behind his back. "Observe," he said. "Courage without capacity becomes noise." Elias heard him. Everyone heard him. But Elias was no longer listening in the way Voss wanted. His eyes were moving. Drone 1 fired every 4 seconds after target lock. Drone 2 delayed half a second when a civilian marker crossed its path. The floor plates near the left wall did not shift fully because the maintenance seam interrupted them. The smoke vents were not random. They opened after shield impact above a certain force. He took another round to the thigh and went down on 1 knee. A second marker blinked out, then a third. A warning tone announced simulated blood loss. He could have rushed the exit and saved his pride, but he turned back for the 4th marker and caught a blast directly against his chest. The safety rig locked, froze his body, and ended the run. Silence settled over the hall. Elias remained on 1 knee inside the dying red light, breathing hard, sweat running down one side of his face. The board displayed the result in clean Academy script. Objective failed, civilian preservation incomplete, combat efficiency poor. Voss walked to the edge of the corridor and looked down at him. "There is your human courage," he said. "Loud, stubborn, and useless." Some cadets looked away. Others waited for anger, shame, or some wild human reply. Elias slowly lifted his head, still studying the corridor as the drones folded back into the ceiling. Then he said, very quietly, "No, Instructor. That was my first run." By the end of the first training cycle, every cadet in Vayreth War Academy knew the human had failed the red corridor. The result followed Elias' ward through the halls more efficiently than any official announcement could have. It moved in glances, in lowered voices, in the small amused pauses that appeared whenever he entered a room. In the dining tier, where 12 species ate under different gravity fields and atmosphere lamps, cadets looked at his bruised shoulder, the faint limp in his left leg, and the plain earth uniform that suddenly seemed even smaller among them. No one openly insulted him at first. They did not need to. The board had done it for them. Objective failed. Civilian preservation incomplete. Combat efficiency poor. It was clean, official, and cruel in the way only numbers could be cruel when they did not explain what had actually happened inside a person's head. Elias sat alone near the lower nutrition rail with a tray of Academy rations he had not bothered to identify. His left hand held a stylus. His right hand moved across a thin slate, drawing the red corridor from memory. Not beautifully, not like art, but with the sharp practical marks of someone rebuilding a wound until it became useful. 3 drone nests, 2 shifting wall sections, 5 civilian markers, smoke vents tied to shield impacts, weakness in the left floor seam, delayed fire when civilian markers crossed the targeting path. He wrote all of it down while laughter moved somewhere behind him. A cadet with plated shoulders passed close enough to mutter, "Maybe Earth should send someone with bones next time." Elias did not look up. He drew another arrow through the corridor and circled the maintenance seam twice. Across the dining tier, Cadet Rika Saul watched him longer than she meant to. Rika belonged to the Corvani, a species raised on military discipline so old that children learned formation walking before they learned formal poetry. She was tall, narrow, silver-eyed, and strong enough to crack a training shield with one shoulder if she wanted to. She had laughed with the others when Elias asked about civilian losses. Not loudly, but enough. Now she was not laughing. The human did not look broken. That bothered her. Most cadets humiliated by Master Voss either burned with anger or folded inward until they became careful and quiet. Elias was quiet, yes, but not defeated. His face held pain, exhaustion, and something worse for anyone who wanted to dismiss him: attention. Rika finally crossed the dining tier and stopped beside his table. "You are aware they are mocking you," she said. Elias finished a line before answering. "Yes, you do not seem angry." "I am." He tapped the slate where the second drone pattern bent wrong. "But anger is only useful for about 10 seconds. After that, it starts making decisions for you." Rika studied him, uncertain whether that was wisdom or human stubbornness dressed in calm words. "Master Voss made you fail in front of the class." Elias looked up then. His eyes were tired but steady. "No, he put me in a system I did not understand and let me fail fast enough to see what mattered." Rika's expression tightened. "That is a generous description of humiliation." Elias gave the smallest shrug and winced when his shoulder reminded him it had been hit too many times. Humiliation is only wasted if you refuse to study it. Before Rika could answer, a shadow fell over the table. 3 cadets from the upper command track stood nearby, led by a bronze-scaled Varnik named Sorak, the same one who had muttered that no first-year completed the red corridor. His crest was polished, his academy marks perfect, and his voice carried the lazy confidence of someone who had never been forced to earn silence. "Still planning your victory, human?" he asked. Elias returned to his slate. "Planning a better failure first." Sorak clicked his teeth. "Your species has strange ambitions." "We had too," Elias said. "Most of our early plans were terrible." One of Sorek's companions laughed despite himself, then stopped when Sorek looked at him. The bronze cadet leaned closer. "Tomorrow, perhaps you should ask if imaginary civilians have feelings too." Elias' stylus paused. Not from anger. Rika saw the difference. He was deciding whether the response was worth the energy. Finally, he said, "They do not need feelings to change the mission. They just need weight." Sorek frowned. "Weight?" Elias looked at him. "A commander who ignores what he is assigned to protect is not efficient. He is just fast in the wrong direction." That line did not make Sorak angry at first. It confused him, and that was worse. He stared for a moment, then turned away with a sharp motion of his crest. "Enjoy your notes, Ward. They will not save you from the next demonstration." When they left, Rika remained standing beside the table. Elias went back to drawing. After a long silence, she said, "You speak as if you expect another one. Master Voss did not bring me here to stop after one failure. And you are not concerned." Elias glanced toward the high instructor balcony overlooking the dining tier. Voss was there, speaking quietly with another officer, his 4 eyes never fully leaving the human below. "Concerned is not the same as surprised," Elias said. The next morning, the class assembled in Tactical Chamber 6, a circular room built around a living simulation floor. Instead of the red corridor, the floor projected a broken urban evacuation zone, half-collapsed towers, blocked transit lanes, and civilian markers clustered behind failing shields. Master Voss stood at the center with his hands folded behind him. Yesterday, Cadet Ward demonstrated the limits of individual human response. Today, we will examine command. A low murmur passed through the room. Voss lifted a control shard and 6 cadet names appeared above the floor. Rika Saul, Sorak Ven, tell him of the Ash Brood, Merrick's Coil, Dana Threll, Elias Ward. Then the command mark shifted and settled over Elias' name. Sorek's head snapped toward the instructor. "Master Voss, with respect, this cannot be a serious assignment." Voss looked almost pleased. "It is very serious. A commander must lead not only those who admire him, Cadet Sarek, but those unfortunate enough to doubt him. The class understood then. Voss had not chosen Ilia's squad randomly. He had given him cadets too proud to obey him, too different to trust him, and too visible for failure to pass quietly. Ilias stepped onto the simulation floor without protest. The others followed more slowly. Voss explained the mission with surgical calm. A civilian convoy is trapped behind hostile drone advance. Ammunition is limited. Communications are degraded. 2 routes are blocked. 1 squad member will be marked injured after first contact. Extraction must occur before the shield line collapses. He turned to Ilias. You have 2 minutes to assign roles, Commander Ward. Ilias looked at his squad, not at their faces first but at their bodies, armor, hands, eyes, and balance. Rika, shock resistance and close cover. Rika nodded once. Yes, tell him wall movement. The insectoid cadet flexed hooked limbs. Superior to yours. Good, Marek's heat trace vision. Through smoke, not stone. Enough. Dana, your species hears vibration through metal, correct? She blinked, surprised he knew. Correct. Ilias turned last to Sarek. You have the strongest shield rating here. Sarek's crest lifted. Obviously. Then you are civilian guard, center position. The insult hit before the logic did. You place me behind you. I place you where the civilians are most likely to survive. Sarek stepped closer, voice low. I do not take commands from prey. The first hostile drones appeared at the edge of the projection. Ilias looked past him at the incoming wave and said, calm as a locked door. Then take commands from math. Move left or die first. For 1 second, no one moved except the drones. They came out of the broken street projection, targeting lights sweeping across the squad and the civilian markers behind them. Sarek's pride lasted until the first burst cut through the place where his chest had been a moment earlier. He moved left because Ilias Ward had told him to, and the shot slammed into a concrete pillar instead. Ilias did not smile. He was already pointing. Rika, front right, draw fire but do not charge. Tell him, upper wall, eyes past the smoke. Dana, listen under the floor. Marek's call heat movement only. Sarek, civilian, stay behind your shield. Sarek looked furious, but another burst struck his shield and forced him back. Master Voss watched from the edge of the chamber. The class had expected panic from the human, maybe some wild act of courage meant to erase yesterday's shame. Instead, Ilias gave orders in a low voice that cut through the simulation like a blade. He made the squad smaller, tighter, harder to break. When a civilian marker rolled into open ground, Ilias did not chase it. Dana, floor vibration, left or right. Dana pressed 2 fingers to the projected street. Drone under the smoke, left side, 3 seconds. Ilias turned. Rika hit the lamp post, not the drone. Her shoulder smashed the post. It fell across the street just as the hidden drone emerged, blocking its firing lane long enough for Telem to drag the marker behind cover. A murmur moved through the watching class. Voss heard it and disliked it. Efficiency remains poor, he said loudly. The human is spending too much motion preserving unstable assets. Ilias heard him, but his eyes stayed on the map unfolding in smoke and fire. They are not assets, he said. They are the reason we are here. The words sounded like a correction, not a speech. Sarek's shield flared again as 3 drones focused on the civilian cluster. My shield is overloading, he snapped. Then kneel, Ilias said. Lower profile, make them fire downward. Sarek snarled, but he knelt and the drone angles shifted. Marek's heat bloom on the right generator. Unstable, Marek's replied. If it is hit, it vents. Good. Rika, pull back. Tell him cut the support cable. The generator vented into the street, filling the lane with white heat fog. The drones lost sight for 4 seconds. Ilias used all 4. They moved through the fog in pieces. Rika carried Marek's after the simulation tagged his leg wounded. Telem crossed above them, pulling a guidance wire between 2 walls. Dana called enemy motion before it appeared. Sarek stayed with the civilians, and because he had stopped arguing, they stayed alive. Ilias took the center lane, not because it was brave, but because the drones needed something to look at. A hard light round struck his side and knocked him into a cracked transport shell. Another hit his shoulder. The safety rig screamed warnings. Rika turned back. Ward, you are exposed. Elias pushed himself up. Good. Keep moving. Sarek stared from behind the shield. You are using yourself as bait. No, Elias said through tight breathing. I am using the cheapest target. Rika's voice sharpened. You are not cheap. Elias did not answer. He was counting drone cycles. The exit tower appeared through the smoke. The command point glowed green only 20 meters ahead, open for 3 seconds between rotating fire arcs. Elias saw it at the same time Voss did. If he ran alone, he could reach it. The board would show that the human had completed what others had failed. But behind him, 3 civilian markers were still trapped behind a collapsed barrier, and Merrick's was moving too slowly. Voss leaned forward. There, the instructor said. A commander must know when to secure victory. Elias looked at the green command point. Then he turned away from it. The room changed. Rika, with me. Sarek, hold shield. Tell him, drop the wire. We are pulling them back. Voss's voice cut across the chamber. Cadet Ward, you are abandoning the completion route. Elias wrapped the guidance wire around the collapsed barrier. No, sir. I am returning to the mission. The mission includes victory. The mission said evacuation. Rika braced beside him. Sarek locked his shield as fire hammered against it. Tell him pulled from above. Elias pulled from below, and the barrier shifted just enough for the civilian markers to slide through. The timer bled red. 10 seconds. 8. Merrick stumbled. Dana caught him. Sarek stepped out of cover to widen his shield and took 3 hits that drove him to one knee. Elias shoved the last marker into the extraction lane as the clock hit 0. The simulation ended in a burst of white light. The board appeared above them. Objective failed by 3 seconds. Civilian survival, highest first-year record. Squad survival, complete. Command efficiency, irregular but effective. Sarek stood, staring at the numbers. Voss erased the public score with one sharp motion of his control shard. Technical anomaly, he said. The exercise will be repeated under stricter conditions. This time, no one laughed. Rika looked at Elias as he unhooked the safety rig with shaking fingers. He is not testing you anymore, she said quietly. He is trying to break you. Elias looked at the empty board and answered, I know. Master Taran Voss did not speak for almost 10 seconds after the erased score vanished from the chamber wall. That silence disturbed the class more than anger would have. Anger had shape. Silence had intention. Elias Ward stood with one hand still resting on the safety rig release, his breathing uneven from simulated impact pain, while Rika Saul watched the instructor with the stillness of someone recognizing a battlefield change before the first shot. Sarek did not look at Elias directly. That, more than any apology, told the room something had shifted. The bronze-scaled cadet had entered the exercise believing the human would waste them all through weakness. He had left it alive because the human had placed him where his strength mattered most. Voss saw that change. His 4 cold eyes moved across the cadets, measuring not their scores but their attention. They were no longer waiting for Elias to fail. They were waiting to see what he would do next, and that was unacceptable. Since the Academy appears eager to admire irregularity, Voss said at last, we will proceed to a historical command exercise. No corridor tricks, no civilian toys, no clever little rescue patterns. War. The floor rebuilt itself into a star map. A blue-white colony world appeared in the center, surrounded by weak orbital platforms, damaged supply lanes, and a thin defense fleet that looked almost ashamed to exist beside the red icons forming beyond the outer moon. Those red icons were beautiful in the worst way: clean formations, superior range, superior tonnage, superior speed. Every cadet recognized the lesson before Voss named it. The fall of Thurak Minor, Rika said quietly. Voss turned his head. Correct. A defeat so completed is still studied in every serious fleet academy. The defenders' error was emotional attachment. They tried to preserve population centers instead of concentrating strength. Their line fractured. Their colony burned. Today, Cadet Ward will command the defenders. A few cadets stiffened. Thurak Minor was not a normal simulation. It was a grave with mathematics written over it. Elias looked at the map and saw immediately what Voss had done. There was no winning position. The enemy had too much mass, Too many firing angles, and the civilians were scattered across 3 evacuation zones with not enough transports to move them all at once. Objective? Elias asked. Voss's mouth tightened slightly, as if the question itself annoyed him. Survive long enough to make your defeat instructional. The attacking force was assigned to the other cadets, including Sorak, though Voss kept direct authority over their strategic settings. Elias stood alone at the defender's command ring with failing fleets under his hands and millions of simulated civilians below. The countdown began. He did not reach for weapons first. He reached for traffic control. Voss noticed. "You are being invaded, Cadet Ward." Elias moved 3 civilian convoys away from the largest city and toward a debris-heavy polar route. "Yes, sir. And your first act is scheduling transport. My first act is deciding what I am not allowed to lose." The class heard the answer through the open channel. Sorek's attack wing advanced in perfect formation, expecting Elias to form a desperate defensive wall. Instead, the human abandoned the outer moon without firing a shot. A murmur rose. Voss snapped, "You yield territory without contest." Elias marked the moon's fuel depots for remote detonation after evacuation. "I yield ground, not time." 30 seconds later, the depots ignited behind the advancing Red Fleet, not destroying it, but scattering its sensor rhythm and forcing Sorak to slow his attack to reorganize. The battle became uglier after that. Elias did not fight like the Academy models expected. He gave up stations before their crews were trapped. He stripped guns from abandoned platforms and turned them into automated ambush points. He sent empty evacuation barges, broadcasting false life signs through the equatorial lane, while the real civilian transports moved cold behind the polar debris field. He allowed 1 defense cruiser to appear stranded, waited until the enemy closed to capture range, then overloaded its reactor after the crew pods were already away. Rika, commanding 1 red pursuit group, whispered over the enemy channel, "He is not trying to stop us." Sorak answered, less certain now. "Then what is he doing?" Elias heard neither of them, but his next order answered anyway. "Make every advance cost them formation, fuel, or time. If they want the colony, they pay for it in pieces." Voss stepped closer to the command ring. "This is not victory." Elias shifted 3 frigates into a suicide-looking angle, then pulled them away at the last second, baiting a red squadron into mine shadow. "No, sir, it is refusal." Then the simulation forced the decision Voss had been waiting for. A defense platform above the northern evacuation zone lost engine control. Its crew could still fire 1 last broadside, enough to save a refugee convoy from interception, but the platform would be destroyed immediately afterward. The crew were only simulated voices, Academy constructs, not living cadets. Still, when the request came through, Elias paused. "Command," the artificial captain said, voice shaking with programmed fear. "We can cover the convoy if you release safety locks." Voss's eyes sharpened. "Why hesitate? They are numbers." Elias looked at the convoy, then at the platform. "Everything is numbers until you have to say yes." Voss's voice hardened. "A commander who cannot spend lives loses wars." Elias released the locks. The platform fired, saved the convoy, and vanished under red fire. His jaw flexed once. A commander who stops feeling the cost becomes cheaper than the weapons he uses. No one spoke. Even Voss seemed struck for half a breath, but pride recovered faster than honesty. He ended the simulation before the final collapse and let the room see the result. Defender defeat inevitable. Civilian evacuation, 73% above historical outcome. Enemy advance delayed beyond acceptable invasion window. Red Fleet losses strategically unsustainable. Elias removed his hands from the command ring slowly. He had still lost the world, but he had made winning it too expensive to celebrate. Voss stared at the numbers as if they had insulted him personally. Then he said, low and cold, "Enough theory. Tomorrow, we will see what human judgment is worth when the floor is real." The next morning, Tactical Chamber 6 was empty of projections and full of real machinery. The walls had been opened to expose training vents, pressure gates, emergency ladders, and a sealed reactor mock-up beneath the floor. Master Taran Voss stood at the central rail with a cold patience that made the cadets quieter than usual. Simulations have allowed confusion, he said. Today, there will be no decorative civilians, no generous scoring, no clever manipulation of historical data. You will complete a live academy emergency drill. Cadet Ward will observe only. Elias stood near the back, one arm still sore from the previous day's safety rig. Rika glanced at him once but said nothing. Sarek stood with his shield harness locked, his pride still wounded but no longer careless. Voss activated the drill. Red lights washed over the chamber. Blast doors lowered. Artificial smoke poured across the lower floor. Scenario, Voss announced. Training reactor instability. Containment breach. Cadets will evacuate by Doctrine Path 7, recover the injured marker, and seal the lower wing. The first 30 seconds went exactly as planned. Then the floor shook too hard. The sound that followed was not part of any drill Elias had ever heard. It was deep, uneven, and metallic, like something under the academy had torn loose and struck the bones of the building. The red lights flickered white. The smoke vents coughed once and died. A real alarm began screaming beneath the drill alarm, lower and sharper. Several cadets looked toward Voss, waiting for correction. The instructor's 4 eyes narrowed at the control panel. "Reset chamber sequence," he ordered. Nothing happened. A second blast rolled through the floor, and this time a seam split near the western gate. Pale coolant vapor hissed upward in a thick cloud. One insected cadet near the gate collapsed immediately, limbs locking against his chest. Rika moved first, dragging him back by the harness. "That is not training smoke," she snapped. Voss struck the control panel with one hand. "Central Command, respond," static answered. For 3 seconds no one led. That was how fast order could die. Elias stepped forward before fear finished spreading. Everyone away from the western seam. Heat breathers to the left rail. Anyone with lung filters cover the fallen. "Dana, can you hear flow direction through the floor?" Voss turned sharply. "Cadet Ward, you are not in command." Elias did not look at him. "No, sir, but the gas is moving faster than your orders." Dana dropped to one knee, fingers against the floor. "Coolant line rupture below us. Main exit is sealed. Pressure is building under the south gate." Elias pointed. "Sarek, shield over the injured. Rika, take 2 strong cadets and clear the service lockers. We need masks, cutters, anything manual." Sarek hesitated only once. Then he moved. That single obedience changed the room. Voss tried again to restore Doctrine Path 7, but the Academy systems had locked the chamber into containment mode. The doors were sealed to protect the upper levels, trapping the class below. Elias moved to the wall map, wiped condensation from its surface, and found the old maintenance pattern he had noticed during the Red Corridor exercise. The same left side seam, the same outdated service logic hidden beneath modern polish. "There is a manual evacuation line under the training floor," he said. Voss stared at him. That line was decommissioned. Decommissioned means old, not gone. Rika returned with 2 emergency masks and a cutter. "There are younger cadets in the observation annex," she said, voice tight. The annex door sealed when the breach started. Elias looked through the cracked emergency glass. Beyond it, small shapes moved in blue academy uniforms, trapped behind a blast door as vapor gathered around their feet. Voss saw them too, and for the first time his certainty broke. "The system will vent that section automatically." Dana shook her head. "No, pressure valve is jammed." One of the younger cadets behind the glass lifted a hand and pressed it against the door. The class went silent. Elias pulled the wall panel open and studied the manual release assembly. "We can open the annex from here if someone holds the pressure lever in the service corridor." Rika followed his gaze to the narrow passage beside the broken seam. Vapor rolled through it in pale waves. "That corridor is exposed. Yes, it will crush your lungs. Not immediately." Voss stepped between him and the passage. "Absolutely not." Elias finally looked at him. "Instructor, I need your access codes, not your pride." The words hit harder than shouting. Voss's hand hovered near his command band. For one bitter second, old prejudice fought real necessity in his face. Then he entered the code. The service door unlocked with a dying click. Elias grabbed one mask but handed it to the collapsed insectoid cadet instead. Rika caught his wrist. "Ward, take it. He needs it more. You will die, not if you move fast." Sorek's voice came from behind his shield. "Human?" Elias turned. The bronze cadet looked at him, anger gone now, replaced by something heavier. "Tell us the timing." Elias gave it without drama. "When I pull the lever, the annex door opens for 12 seconds. Rika leads the children through. Sorek shields the first group. Dana guides by sound if visibility drops. No one runs ahead. No one goes back unless I say." Voss said quietly, "Ward, this is not a simulation." Elias stepped into the service corridor, vapor burning around his boots. "I know." The pressure hit him at the third step. By the fifth, his chest felt too small for breath. By the seventh, his hands were shaking. He reached the manual lever, wrapped both hands around it and pulled. The annex door screamed open. Rika surged forward. Children began spilling through the gap, coughing and terrified. The pressure wave slammed into Elias, driving him to one knee, but he did not let go. Through the glass, Rika shouted something he could not hear. Sorek's shield flared. Dana guided the last child by touch. Voss stood frozen for half a heartbeat, watching the human he had tried to humiliate hold a failing door open with his body. Then Elias looked back through the vapor and forced out 3 words. "Move, them, faster." The last child cleared the annex door with Rika's arm locked around his shoulders and Sorek's shield burning white above them. For one brief second, it looked as if the worst had passed. Then the pressure line beneath the service corridor ruptured fully, and the wave hit Elias Ward like an invisible wall. His boots slid backward across the wet metal. His shoulder struck the lever housing hard enough to make the whole frame scream. Vapor wrapped around him in pale sheets, burning his throat, his eyes, his exposed skin. Every instinct in his body begged him to let go, but beyond the emergency glass, the annex door was still not closed, and 2 younger cadets were still crawling through the threshold on shaking hands. Elias tightened both arms around the manual lever until his fingers went numb. Rika shouted his name from the far side, but the sound came distorted through alarms and coolant pressure. He saw her face through the vapor, saw Sorek trying to hold the shield line with both knees bent, saw Dana guiding the smallest cadet by touch because visibility had dropped to almost nothing. Elias forced air into his lungs and found only fire. "Keep moving," he rasped, though he did not know if anyone heard him. Master Taran Voss heard enough. The instructor stood at the edge of the service corridor, frozen between doctrine and reality, between every insult he had thrown at the human and the simple fact that the human was now being crushed to save cadets who had laughed at him. For years, Voss had taught that hesitation killed, that emotion weakened command, that mercy was an expensive flaw. Yet Elias had hesitated before spending simulated lives because they mattered. And now he did not hesitate at all when the cost became his own body. The contradiction broke something old and ugly inside the instructor. Voss stepped into the corridor. The coolant struck his skin and made him snarl, but he kept moving. "Ward," he shouted. "Release the lever." Elias shook his head once, barely. The final cadet was almost through. The door mechanism juddered, ready to slam shut if pressure shifted. Voss reached him and wrapped one arm around the lever beside his. "Cadet, that is an order." Elias turned his face just enough for Voss to see his eyes through the vapor. They were bloodshot, wet, and still terribly focused. "Did they all get out?" Voss looked back. Rika dragged the last child clear. Sorek dropped the shield over them as the annex door finally sealed. Voss swallowed. Yes. Only then did Elias let go. His body failed all at once. Voss caught him before he struck the floor, and the class saw it through the emergency glass. The feared instructor, the one who had dragged the human into humiliation after humiliation, carrying Elias Ward out of the pressure corridor with both arms locked under his shoulders. Rika reached them first when the service door opened. "He needs air," she said, already pulling the emergency mask from the injured insectide cadet, who weakly pushed it toward her as if he understood. Sorek moved without being told, placing his shield between the leaking seam and the group while Merrick's and Dana helped seal the corridor from the outside. Nobody waited for Voss now, not because they rejected him, but because the human had taught them what command looked like when time stopped being polite. They worked together in ugly, efficient silence. Rika held the mask to Ilya's face. Dana listened for secondary fractures. Tell him climb the wall and cut the jammed valve line. Sarek stood over the fallen human and took every burst of debris against his shield without complaint. When Elias coughed and dragged in one shallow breath, the whole chamber seemed to breathe with him. By the time Academy rescue crews forced open the upper containment doors, Tactical Chamber 6 no longer looked like a classroom. It looked like the aftermath of a small battle. Cadets sat against walls with burned uniforms and shaking hands. Younger students cried into the arms of seniors who had not known their names an hour earlier. Voss stood near the medical stretcher, coolant burns across one side of his face, watching Elias argue weakly with the medic that other cadets needed treatment first. The medic ignored him with professional contempt. Sarek approached slowly, his bronze crest lowered in a gesture no one in the class had ever seen him offer to a human. "Ward," he said, voice rough. Elias opened one eye. "If this is about moving left, you are welcome." Sarek stared at him for a moment, then gave a short, broken laugh that sounded almost painful. "I called you prey." Elias breathed through the mask. "You were wrong." Sarek bowed his head. "Yes." 3 hours later, the surviving class gathered in the main hall because Voss requested it before the Academy board could bury the incident beneath investigation language. Elias stood near the front with one arm bound, his throat raw, refusing a chair until Rika quietly kicked the back of his knee and made him sit. Voss faced the cadets in silence, and this time the silence did not feel like punishment. It felt like confession. "I intended to expose human weakness," he said at last. "Instead, I exposed my own prejudice. Cadet Ward failed exercises I designed to humiliate him, and in each failure he learned faster than this academy judged. He was not strongest, he was not fastest, he was not built for our halls, but when systems failed and doctrine froze, he remembered the mission. Not pride, not score, not victory, lives." His 4 eyes lowered to Elias. "The class will record today's lesson correctly. Respect is not owed to power. It is earned by what one protects when power is not enough." No one applauded. That would have been too small. One by one, the cadets gave their formal respect gestures. Elias looked exhausted, uncomfortable, and very human. When Voss later updated the exchange file, his final note was simple. "Do not mistake human restraint for weakness. They are slow only because they are deciding how many people they can still save."